On Thursday, Speaker Pelosi and Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer celebrated the passage of the Respect for Marriage Act through the House. The legislation, which was fast-tracked by Democrats, codifies same-sex and interracial marriage into law. The legislation became a top priority for Democrats and pro-gay marriage lawmakers after the Dobbs decision. While some Republicans opposed the bill, it quite easily passed both chambers with bipartisan support. President Biden is expected to sign it into law.
As our colleagues gather, may I thank you all, not only for being here, but being there on this issue for such a long time. At last, we have history in the making, but not only are we on the right side of history, we're on the right side of the future, expanding freedom in America. So I'm honored to be here with Leader Schumer, who's on his way. You'll be hearing from Representative Cicilline, Senator Baldwin, Rep. Nadler, and our wrap-up. We're honored to welcome over on the House side Senator Collins. Thank you, Senator Collins. As we, shall we say, anticipating Leader Schumer, may I just introduce some of our members: Sharice Davids of Kansas, Angie Craig of Minnesota, the newly engaged Chris Pappas of New Hampshire, Richie Torres of New York, Chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, Mark Takano of California, David Cicilline, I mentioned already, the chair, one of the chairs of the Equality Caucus, the sponsor of the Equality Act, which we have yet to do. Mr. Cicilline, thank you. Of course, the chair of the Judiciary Committee, Jerry Nadler. Thank you, Jerry. And our member of the leadership from New York, Sean Patrick Maloney. When they said he was on his way, I thought they meant from his office. Oh, he's here. I didn't know whether it was from Brooklyn or from the Senate side or what. And let us welcome back to the House side our former colleague here, this one we're so proud of, Mr. Leader Chuck Schumer. This is an emotional day for many of us here. I see some of my neighbors from San Francisco here, and as I spoke on the floor, I referenced, you can come up here now. If you wish, or you can sit.
About the same height.
We've been working together for a long time, so what passes for humor in the Senate side, not necessarily.
It took me 12 years to get her to laugh at my jokes.
He said plural. I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about plural. But anyway, it is a happy day. As I said on the floor, and I had the picture of Phyllis and Dell, just two wonderful San Franciscans who were the first to be married in San Francisco when Mayor Gavin Newsom, then Mayor Gavin Newsom, instituted this in our city. And I also want to mention Jim Hormel, who was the chair of my campaign when I ran for Congress, and I officiated at his wedding. The three of them are shining down on us from heaven. Today, Congress sends the Respect for Marriage Act to the President's desk, a glorious triumph of love and freedom. Let us salute those who've legislated and advocated relentlessly to make this bill the law of the land. Mr. Chairman, Jerry Nadler, Equality Chair David Cicilline, and all of his tireless co-chairs of that caucus on the House side, Leader Chuck Schumer, and they were all applauded earlier. So Senator Tammy Baldwin, formerly of the House as well. And again, to welcome to the House side, Senator Collins. Senator Collins. Again, her presence here is a statement to the bipartisan, bicameral support this legislation has. Today, we stand against an urgent threat, and we succeeded, for the values that our nation holds dear. Since the monstrous Dobbs decision, right-wing forces have set their sights on more of America's personal freedoms, including the right to marry the person you love. Our history has always been about expanding freedom until that decision. We are privileged to be joined by Judith Casson Windsor, the loving wife of iconic trailblazer late Edith Windsor. Wave the book, wave the book, there's the book. Thank you for honoring us with your presence and for serving us with your courage, and we miss Edith.
Twice now.
Yeah. Yes, and here we are. Now this time should make it work. Edith Windsor once said of marriage, for anybody who doesn't understand why we want it, we need it. It is magic, she said. It is magic. This legislation honors that magic, protecting it from bigoted extremism, defending the inviolability of the same-sex and interracial marriages. The Respect for Marriage Act takes key steps to uphold marriage equality under federal law. This is what we're celebrating. Tearing down the Defense of Marriage Law, taking off the books for good. Enshrining married couples' right to equal protection. Requiring that every state recognize all valid marriages out of state as long as it is recognized in the state of their marriage. The legislation reflects Democrats' belief in the dignity, beauty, and divinity of every person. And you may know the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell was one of my final, Chuck, I was saying this too, one of the final bills that I signed as Speaker the first time around, December 2010, was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So you can just imagine how exciting it is at this point, at the end of this term as Speaker, to be signing the Respect for Marriage Act. And with that, I want to yield to our former colleague in the House, a champion on these issues. Remember when we did HOPWA, Housing Opportunity for People with AIDS? So many years of service to the community, for our country, for freedom. Distinguished Leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
No matter where she stands, her stature is always enormous. Wow, this is a great day. Now, for millions of Americans, today is a very good day, an important day, a day that's been a long time in coming. We are sending the Respect for Marriage Act to the President's desk. Today, the long but inexorable march towards greater equality takes a very important step forward. Because of our work together, the rights of millions of LGBTQ Americans will be strengthened under federal law. As I've said many times, the Respect for Marriage Act is deeply personal to many of us in the Congress, many of us here, and certainly to me. My wife and I are so proud that our daughter and her wife are expecting their first child, my third grandchild, in the new year. Today, thanks to the tireless advocacy of many in this room, and the dogged work by many of my colleagues, my grandchild will live in a world that will respect and honor their mother's marriage. So yes, This is about millions of LGBTQ Americans in the country, but countless other lives of children and families will also be impacted as well. This legislation is a chance to send a message to Americans everywhere. No matter who you are, who you love, you too deserve dignity and equal treatment under the law. Under the law. That's about as an American ideal as it gets. I want to thank everyone from both chambers who shepherded this bill to the finish line. And of course, I thank Speaker Pelosi and Representative Cicilline and my good friend Jerry Nadler. On the Senate side, I want to thank once again Senators Sinema and Baldwin, as well as Collins and Tillis and Portman. Their work has been magnificent, and I'm so thankful they stayed the course, even when success seemed elusive. Pushing respect for marriage over the finish line required patience and persistence. Today, it's paying off. Most of all, thank you to the American people, the vast majority of whom have understood that the inexorable march towards equality is at the core of the American being. You made this bill possible, America. You made change happen, America. Because of you, the American people, we are taking one step closer to fulfilling our mission of a more perfect union. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Cicilline. I chair the Equality Caucus in the House and represent the great state of Rhode Island. And I have the privilege of speaking today on behalf of all of the co-chairs of the Equality Caucus. First, to say thank you to everyone in this room. Today is a great day and a day for extraordinary celebration for our community. For the first time in a decade, we're sending a major LGBTQ plus civil rights bill to the president's desk. And it is delivered to the president's desk with strong bipartisan votes in both chambers. That's where as the speaker would say, that's an applause line. And everyone in this room and so many other LGBTQ plus leaders around the country have been such a part of this work and are part of this success. The vast majority of Americans, as you know, agree that marriage equality is settled law in this country. And with today's vote, Congress has provided much needed security to same-sex and interracial couples who have built their families and lives around marriage equality. And we hope the day will never come when Obergefell is overturned, but the historic passage of the Respect for Marriage Act shows Congress's commitment to protecting the rights of the American people and their access to marriage equality. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's been part of this work. I want to end with a particular thank you to our speaker, who began her career in the House fighting to help us confront the ravages of the AIDS and HIV pandemic in this country, and is at least ending her speakership with this important success. There has never been, my guess is there never will be, a stronger ally and more effective ally for the LGBTQ plus community in the Congress of the United States than Speaker Pelosi. So we thank you.
Well, I am delighted to be here on this incredible occasion, and I also want to recognize a couple of folks who have joined the stage. Mark Pocan, who's my congressman, so I want to take, as well as majority. Oh my gosh, Barney Frank! Oh my gosh! Okay, another choke up, welling up of the tears moment. David Cicilline has the honor of chairing the Equality Caucus. Barney and I have the honor of having founded it a few years back. But today we are making history, but we're also making a difference for millions of Americans. We're taking a step forward in the fight for equality, and ensuring dignity and respect for all Americans. With the passage of the Respect for Marriage Act, we can put to rest the worries of millions of loving couples who are concerned that someday an activist Supreme Court may take their rights and freedoms away. We are giving these loving couples the certainty that their marriages are legal and that they will continue to have the same rights and responsibilities and benefits of every other married couple. We are telling these Americans that we see them and we respect them. On the Senate side, I think we can say we defied political gravity and earned a dozen Republican members' support for marriage equality. Many people are asking what the passage of this historic bill means to me as a member of the LGBTQ+ community. What I said to people who asked me a similar question in 2012 when I was first elected to the Senate still rings true today. I didn't run for the Senate to make history. I ran to make a difference. But the difference today is that we get to do both. We're making history and making a difference for millions of Americans. And next, let's hear from Judiciary Committee Chair Nadler.
Well, thank you very much. This is truly a great and historic moment. When I first introduced the Respect for Marriage Act in 2009, it was seen as fringe legislation that would never see the light of day. To be standing here now, about to send this bill to the President for his signature, would have been unimaginable to most people back then. But thanks to the hard work of the advocates who never wavered and who never lost sight of the goal of achieving marriage equality, as well as the courageous leadership of Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, we are on the cusp of a great moral victory. I want to thank David Cicilline and the co-chairs of the LGBTQ+ Equality Caucus, the chairs of the Congressional Tri-Caucus, and Hakeem Jeffries for joining me in introducing this legislation in the House, and Senators Baldwin and Collins for everything they did to assure passage in the Senate. It was just reported the other day that there are now more than 1 million same-sex couple households. Many of them are raising children in loving families. This legislation provides the security and the dignity that each one of those families deserve. I am grateful to everyone who helped us get here today, and I look forward to watching President Biden sign this bill into law. And next is Senator Collins.
Thank you. Last but not least, let me begin my comments today by thanking all of the leaders who have gathered here, but in particular my partner, Tammy Baldwin, in the Senate. The Speaker reminisced a bit about the repeal of the discriminatory Don't Ask, Don't Tell law. And I am proud to have been the Republican sponsor of repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I'm also proud to have been the Republican sponsor with Tammy of the Respect for Marriage Act. When I think about this bill, I think about how much it matters to people in each of our lives, our family members, our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends. It affects more than 1 million households in this country, but each and every one of us knows someone, has a relative, or are that person who is benefiting from this bill. And that's why it's so important. It's a bill that truly will make a difference to the lives of so many American families. And that's why it matters so much. There are some people who haven't been thanked today. I want to thank the 39 House Republicans and the 12 Senate Republicans, because without their votes, we would not be standing here today. And believe me, Senator Tillis and Senator Portman and I, on the Republican side, worked so hard. On Thanksgiving Day, as I was basting the turkey, I was also texting with them, taking phone calls, to the point where my relatives and my husband said, "Could you please give it a break just for Thanksgiving?" But I couldn't, because it was so important. I also want to thank the group of faith-based organizations that worked so closely with us and endorsed the bill. We've proven that it is not about rights for LGBTQ community versus rights for churches, mosques, synagogues, temples. We can advance both. And that's what this legislation has done today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Collins. Not only were those Republican votes necessary to pass the bill, it makes it even more special that we're doing so in a very strong bipartisan way. Thank you for your leadership. Your ongoing leadership from Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, in case you are wondering, the bill isn't here. It's coming in a minute. And in the meantime, I just want to acknowledge some of our colleagues who have, see what happens after you pass the bill, there's all this parchment paper, there's a whole process here that usually goes like this, and hopefully it'll be just a moment. But in the meantime, let me acknowledge the distinguished Majority Leader of the House, Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Tammy acknowledged her congressman, our Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin. I'm coming that. And I know we're all thrilled to see Barney Frank here. Barney, I was chatting with Barney earlier, and we said in the beginning we did the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But before that, one of the first bills we did, and we would not have been successful without Barney's leadership, sharing his personal story, when we had the hate crimes legislation, which was fully inclusive, including LGBT. They just said, you can pass this in a minute if you take out transgender. I said, we won't pass it in 100 years unless we have transgender in there. So thank you, Barney, for your leadership. Now that I see the bill is arrived and alive, I'll scale back my next 20 minutes by saying this. I mentioned on the floor Phyllis Lyons and Del Martin, pioneers, icons, and all this. I mentioned Jim Hormel, such a champion, the first openly gay ambassador of our country, appointed by he was appointed by Bill Clinton. But people say to me all the time, it's easy for you to do all of this because you're from San Francisco and people there are so tolerant. I said, don't use the word tolerant. Jackie will attest to this. Tolerant is a condescending word to us. This isn't about tolerance. This is about respect. This is about taking pride. And we all take pride. So, as Senator Collins mentioned, it was, and others have mentioned, they're all of you who made this possible. The inside maneuvering can only go so far without the outside mobilization. But I do, in closing, want to acknowledge some of my constituents and neighbors who were here 3 generations of the Dolby family. Thank you for your leadership and all of that. And now, We will sign a bill and send it to the president's desk. Mr. Schumer, will you join me?
Yes.
As we pass the bill around, you notice it's not very large, but it makes a tremendous difference.
I was here for the birth of Doma, so I am very grateful to be able to be here for the funeral, and it's kind of a New Orleans moment. We are tooting our horns for the funeral, a much happier occasion than the birth. But I just want to say something very important, not just about this bill, but about the job of legislating. I was chagrined to read criticism of Tammy Baldwin before the election for not pressing ahead with this bill to maximize its advantage as a political issue. And Tammy, through her own life experience, understood what troubles this caused for same-sex married couples all over the country. And she understood that resolving those fears was much more important than any political issue. And she stood up, and she was proven right. And I hope people will now take this as an example of responsible legislating, not being panicked by people who have more emotion than intelligence on an issue. And I just want to pay tribute to one of the great legislative achievements I've ever seen, Tammy shepherding this bill through.
Elected to the Congress of the United States. That took courage to run, to win, and she's demonstrated that courage throughout. Here we are. President Biden.
Yeah.
That's why we did it.
How you doing, Barney?
Good. My
All
left,
right?
yeah, disc problems on both sides, so I'm not mobile, but otherwise.
Rain now, so you tired? You have energy.
Oh, yeah.
Really fit.
Yes.
I'm glad what you said about that.
Oh, yeah.
We got such pressure.
I know that.
Oh, from everybody.
That's why I wanted to tell our friend about it. What are you calling? Yada, yada. What do you want? Shame on them.
That's right. Well, they had no faith.